Hey everyone, today I'm just going to be re-reviewing a few of my older mocks that I haven't reviewed in a long time. A few of them have got screen time in the last few, probably months or so, but I haven't truly reviewed many of these guys in probably over a year. I'll start with my least favorite mock and go to my favorite. So this is Erosion, my least favorite. He's really kind of outdated when you compare him to one of my newer mocks. He's just kind of small and he doesn't have nearly as many pieces as this guy over here. His limbs really just aren't very complex and he doesn't look very good in my opinion. And one of the most egregious parts is definitely right here. There's just a random armor plate sticking out right here because there was an exposed ball joint and I really didn't like how it looked, so I just put an armor plate, which was really the best thing I could do to cover that up. But it's kind of weird because his arms stick out, then there's a gap, and then that armor plate. It really just doesn't look the best. And his legs are super plain. His arms aren't very cool. The only cool part about him is the shoulder. It's the shoulder design right here. I really like how that looks. But besides that, he's kind of just gappy and not very good looking. Next we have Renegade. He's my next to least favorite. He's really not very cool in my opinion. He is pretty good for stop motions because he's more movable than most of my mocks because he really doesn't have anything restricting his movement. But also he's only like 70 pieces and his limbs aren't my favorite. I do like this armor design right here. I think it looks pretty good. I don't ever plan to break him because he really doesn't have any useful parts. And yeah, he's kind of cool. He's barely cooler than Erosion in my opinion. And the only reason I've kept these guys up is because they are over a year old. So I'm kind of a little bit nostalgic for them. But I think one day I will definitely have no trouble ripping them to pieces. Next we have Vapor, which actually I still really like. He's not super outdated next to this diver guy that I built. He looks actually pretty good in my opinion. I love the arm design and the shoulder plate design and just the chest plate. I use one of those 1.0/Bionicle like gas launcher or jetpack pieces, which looks pretty good. Also, I used this super weird tiny armor plate. It's kind of actually really hard to see it. That piece right there. I used one of those, which I only have like 3 of them, and I think I used it pretty well. Unfortunately, this piece, which really looks good there, kind of swivels a lot, which annoys me, but it's not too bad. He's very simple, actually. He looks pretty good, in my opinion, though. He took me a while to build him. I think, what was that, a year ago when I built him? I think he's the youngest of all of these builds. I believe Renegade is the oldest, at probably a year and a half, or maybe older. Honestly, I don't know. I wish I had an exact way to track their date, but I know that this guy's definitely the youngest. I really like his arm cannon design. I decided to give him an arm cannon just to be like the actual Vapor guy because he had 2 big guns. But I didn't want to give him 2 guns because I wanted him also to have a hand for stop motion. One day I might make an attachment for his other arm to be a gun too. But he looks pretty good. I actually don't hate him. I probably won't ever break him. But he is just slightly outdated. This diver guy honestly isn't very cool, but up to Vapor he kind of does dwarf him a little bit. But I don't know. I think I like the diver guy better, but Vapor isn't too outdated by my modern building, like some of the others like Renegade and Erosion. Next we have Explode, which he's honestly not outdated at all. He's honestly one of my favorite guys still, because you can see this guy has a little bit more of a technical build to him, but I still think Old Timer just overall looks better. I don't know why. Even though his legs are super simple and his arms aren't very complex, I still think he just looks really good. He looks a lot like a gladiator, actually. I'm thinking about doing a few gladiator stop motions. And I actually just added on these big shoulder plates a few days ago because he used to just be like this. And I thought, Maybe I should just add these on, because I don't think they'll really interfere with these, what are those called? Shoulder plates. And they wound up not really interfering at all. And I think he just turned out really good. He was definitely my favorite guy at the time I built him. But he's actually not my favorite guy right now. I think he looks really good for how old he is, and how I wasn't quite as good back in the day when I built him. But he's kind of outdated when you compare him to one of my big guys. Like, here's the robot Minotaur that I built. Like, one of his legs has probably more pieces than Explode does. And his arms are obviously more complex. But still, I think Explode looks pretty good for the time he was built. And he's definitely my favorite of the guys I've just shown you. I thought I'd give y'all just a real quick size comparison up to the biggest guy I have up right now, which is the Robot Minotaur. He's a super cool guy, and if you haven't seen this review, I would recommend going back and watching it. And when I was building all these guys, I never envisioned that my Meltdown build would be the tallest. I always wanted either Explode or Thunder to be the tallest, but unfortunately I broke the Thunder guy a long time ago, probably 5 months ago. He was honestly the lamest, and I'm glad I broke him, but still, part of me wishes I had him up for this video, because I always wanted to have my own build of all of the 1.0 villains up at the same time, but unfortunately that just didn't happen. Maybe one day I'll build a cooler version of each one of them and do a review video with all of them in it. But I believe the Robot Minotaur stands at about 12 inches exactly, so I would say at the top of his tanks he's probably like 8 inches, he's probably like 7, and probably like 6 and 6. They're almost exactly the same height, they just vary slightly because Vapor's head is just a tiny bit taller. But if I straighten his neck out, they're pretty much the same height. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Tell me which guy is your favorite.